Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Matt Garvey and we are here to talk about making comics today. In today's video, we are going to be discussing hooking those comic book readers so they just have to turn that page to find out what happens next in your comic. Now, if you have been following the channel for a while, we have gone through all the basic steps of, how to go out there and actually make your first comic. Hopefully you followed that by, starting small, with like your 4-page scripts, that kind of thing. And you've been building your way up to, going out and writing, your first actual full graphic novel, or just a 24-page comic or something like that. But what we need to do is we need to get you to that next level of excellence, because I want you to write a great comic. I don't want you to write a bad comic. And there are certain tips and tricks that I'm now going to show you that are hopefully going to elevate you to that next level of comic writing. And as always, these tips and tricks are just the things that I do. Every writer has their own process and technique of how to go about making comics. So just take the bits that you like and leave the other bits behind, but hopefully you'll find this interesting. And one of those is the hook. And what I mean by a hook is we need to get these readers to, again, have to want to turn these comic book pages, because unless you are a Alan Moore or a Grant Morrison, with, a legion of, fans behind you, it's going to be harder for you to write what's called a slow burn kind of story when you're coming out of the gate straight away. Purely because audiences have the attention spans of gnats. We get bored very, very easily. And comics is a tough one because it's a visual medium, but unlike cinema and that kind of thing, you're asking people to engage with those comics and you're asking them to read. So the longer people start flicking through a comic and nothing really happens, people tend to get bored, unless the art is absolutely fantastic, or, this is someone that's in your core audience, because your core audience are going to love everything you do anyway. But we're going after this new audience, the audience that don't know you. So what we need to do is we need to get our hooks into them straight away and get them to love what you're creating. So how I look at it, I like to build my comics around a 4-page structure. And this is one of the reasons why I encourage people to start with 4-page scripts, because if you do a 4-page comic, you're writing a beginning, middle and end, and you know what, that's a scene. And once you've mastered that, you can then put 5 or 6 of those scenes together with the same characters, and then you've got your first comic. And then what you can do is you can move those scenes up and down in the order. That's the great thing about comics, it doesn't have to be told in a linear fashion. You can do flashbacks, flash forwards, or you can just simply go from an A to B linear story. It's completely up to you. But my personal opinion is if you are a new comic creator, and this still goes for myself as well, because I still class myself a new comic book creator, even though I've been doing this for nearly 10 years, is I need to have something in those first 4 pages to grab people's attention. Because, if people don't know me as a reader, I want them to be excited about the story that I'm telling. I don't want them to just be impressed with the art. I want to put something in those first 4 pages where they go, oh, I really want to know where this story is going. Because I personally believe the longer you don't do this, the more chance you've got of losing that audience. So we need to hook them at the beginning of the story. Now, this hook doesn't need to be your, inciting incident, or, your call to action, if you're a protagonist of your story. It can be anything. It could be a joke. It can be a scene with a character that doesn't have any great bearing of the overall story, but it at least, just grabs people's attentions. And just, if you guys don't know what an inciting incident is, or, a call to action for your protagonist, please don't worry. As I've always said on this channel, there is no shame in not knowing these things. In next week's video, I'm going to cover those. So, if you don't know what they are, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can follow that video when it comes along. But as I said, this is what we need to do. Is how I look at it is, you've got a barometer of heat of, where you're going to lose your audience members. So, if someone picks up your comic for the first time, they're going to be excited to read it because, let's be honest, they've judged a book by its cover, they've picked it up and they've flicked through. So, if you don't have anything, good or exciting on those first 4 pages, you're going to get a little bit bored. On 5 to 8, they're going to get a little bit more bored. 9 to 12, okay, they're still reading, but they're starting to get, a bit like, I want something to happen. I want something to, to grab my attention. And, the longer this goes on for, the less chance you've got of, of grabbing that audience member to go, do you know what? I really like where this story is going. It's exciting me. I want to know more. So this is the model that I tend to look at is, I need to personally put something very exciting or something, a joke or a hook or a scene in those, first 4 to 8 pages to grab those people's attention, because otherwise I'm going to lose them. And we can heighten this more by using the page turns in the comic as well to know, where a page turn is, as I've covered in other videos, because that's where you can put a shock, that's where you can put a twist, that's where you can jump to something that's going to grab people's attention as well. And the idea is to actually not have a heat map like this with regards to your story, because you don't want people getting bored by the end of your comic, even if you have done that inciting incident at the start, or the joke, or whatever. For me personally, in an ideal world, this is the type of story structure that I have in my head when I'm writing my comics. When I'm going back and I'm plotting my comics, as we've covered way back at the beginning of this video series, I try to put something interesting, something exciting every 4 to 8 pages, purely because I want the reader to go, oh, I need to know what happens next. Oh, I need to know what happens next. So in an ideal world, you don't want any red or any dark oranges in regards to the attention span of the readers that you're actually trying to grab hold of. So a great example of this is a comic that I do with my buddy J. Francis Totti called Big F Off Worms, and literally on the first page we have a joke. The reason why we have a joke is because I want to make people laugh, because the comic is a action comedy comic, and this is the exact reason why we put this in there. And in fact, I actually put this in after I'd written it. I rewrote it to include this because I thought it was very, very funny, and then Totti agreed with me. And again, by doing this, when a reader reads it for the first time, they know the tone of the book. They know what type of comic this is. And then from there, on the second page, then we do the inciting incident. We explain how the worms came to be. Literally, we have 2 pages of that. And then from there, on page 4, we have an action splash page, and we have another joke. So in those first 4 pages, we have bookended a joke, inciting incident, and another joke, to hopefully grab that reader's attention. Now, and if a reader doesn't like that comic after those first 4 pages, they are not going to like it, which is fine, because not every comic is everyone's cup of tea. But if by doing it this way, we have found that a lot of people want to know more about the story. So when you're sitting there plotting your graphic novel or your first comic after you practice with your 4-page comics, if you can keep that in mind, try and put something exciting, something that's going to grab people's attention in those first 4 pages. You're going to hook that reader from the get-go. And if you can do that, put something good, something exciting, something that's not too wordy and boring, every 6 to 8 pages, so you're going to keep that reader engaged for a lot longer. And then if you can do something like that on the last couple of pages as well, something exciting like a twist or a shock, or something that leads into the next issue, you're going to make that reader want to know what happens next, which is going to help you ensure that they pick up the next issue of your comic. So hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully that's given you some food for thought when you're going back and looking at your scripts, before you pull the trigger and start your first big comic project. As always, I've been Matt Garvey. If you've got value from this video, give us a like, share, and a subscribe. I will see you in the next video. And remember, if I can make comics, anyone can.